Jim and the Holograms, the cartoon, and overall brand belong to Hasbro. IDW's Jim and the Holograms comic belongs to IDW Publishing. All thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are my own. No hate or harassment is intended towards anyone who worked on these comics or the show. A while back, I discussed my thoughts on IDW's Jim and the Holograms, the main series, which was mostly positive despite the way that I sound like I'm being reduced to tears in some parts. Mismanagement and faulty storylines that don't feel like they're going anywhere are a common problem for comic books, though. Not everything can be the Phoenix Saga. Today, I'm going to see if time does any favors, reading the rest of the Jim and the Holograms comics and hopefully discovering some hidden gems, or at least stuff that's worth reading. My ultimate goal, however, is to secretly find an ending that leaves me satisfied. Open endings are the worst, and currently Jim is 3 for 3 on those. Reading order is a little hazy, but for clarity, and because I don't think they're relevant, none of the IDW Synergy or annual comics are going to be included. Now, before we jump in, I know you're just dying to know, Hobie, what are you drawing this time? You're so kind to ask. The answer would be Synergy as the DM of a game of Dungeons & Dragons. First, I want to discuss the anthology series Gem Dimensions. It comes after all of the other comics, but I'm going to talk about it first for 2 reasons. It works on a simple-ish formula, 2 one-shot comics per issue. More bang for your buck, you'd assume, but it doesn't crack that way in the end. I can't summarize this one in full like the others because it would be tedious, so we're gonna skip to my final thoughts on the overall 4-issue series. It's very cute in concept. I love the idea. Making a Gem comic that is episodic should lend itself really well, considering the majority of the original series was episodic. However, there's just not enough space on the page to tell these stories, or do anything interesting or cool. Most of them are 10 pages or less, which would be plenty to tell a short story with only words, but it's not enough for a comic. On top of that, some of these stories do feel lesser than others. The Misfits and the Holograms are trapped in a haunted house together? Okay, that's cool and fun, but I swear there's already a Halloween episode from the show you could watch if you want to see that premise. And honestly, the one that had me the most excited was the Holograms all playing D&D together. As a D&D player myself, this was awesome! Plus, you have Synergy and the format of comics to help sell the storyline. This is so easy. They can use the official D&D stuff since Hasbro owns WotC, and they make use of this by spending half of the comic not playing D&D. They barely use Synergy and just keep saying the full names of stuff like the Monster Manual and the Player's Handbook. Don't you just love when people name drop stuff, guys? Oh, I'm so happy that I heard Synergy reference my favorite campaign module by name. One of them was holding Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Guys, don't you just want to go out and buy D&D stuff now? I'm off topic. Point is, what could have been a really fun short story and a great advertisement for D&D turned into a poor advertisement for D&D that felt like little more than an ad. They do admit that being a dungeon master is, quote, doing all the work, so there's that. Okay, enough about D&D. Do I think the anthology series is worth reading? Well, no. They wrap up nothing, because it's an anthology. They're very cute, but they're lacking in execution, and if I had known what I was getting into, I wouldn't have brought them up so many times last video. I do feel like I kind of threw this one under the bus for no reason. At the same time, I do feel that the short stories it has kind of mischaracterizes the characters they're using. It feels like pointless fluff, which, well, they are one-shots, but at the same time, Vivian just gets used wrong. Anyways, let's start off with where the main comics left off, the Misfits. Jim the Misfits' very first issue is attached to the whole being on the island thing with the stingers. I'm writing this section before I read any of the continuation, so I figure a quick wish list of things I want is in order. I want character development for Roxy and Jetta. I want to see them fleshed out more as individuals, characters separate from each other. And more Tech Rat, I love him so very much. The Misfits, mostly pizzazz, need to be a little evil or they need to commit to not being bad. If we're doing evil, I want to see these girls be evil. But if we're gonna play anti-hero, then I want to see their depth. Blaze needs to put her foot down and quit or be right nasty with them. I want to see her shine and justify herself having been added to the comic. I love her design and I want her to be a good character. I want Stormer to have character traits that aren't in relation to Kimber. So, with all that out, let's see what they did. Each issue is focused on their struggle with their Misfits reality TV show, and more particularly on each character and something about it or them that makes the reality show difficult. First, we have to find out how they got onto this reality show. The Misfits are having a wonderful time playing volleyball when Pizzazz gets called away because Eric Raymond is here to talk. He gives her the bad news that not a single record label is willing to sign them because of their horrid reputation. Eric attempts to soften the blow, but Pizzazz blames herself, going as far as to admit that she made an enemy of Jim and the Holograms. Although I would argue misunderstanding and mutual pettiness did that in all versions of this story. And also Kimber. He pitches a surefire way to get them back into the spotlight, a reality TV show for the Misfits, which does come up during the Hawaii arc of the main comics. I just didn't mention it because it was largely unimportant beyond startling Raya. Pizzazz dislikes the idea, but ultimately succumbs and accepts because they have no other options. During her time spent deliberating on it, we get a flashback to a 14-year-old scene kid Pizzazz, which I must admit I like the idea of. I just don't like how, paper white she is. It kinda looks like they forgot to color her skin in. I can't keep talking about the plot. Real talk for a second, I need to talk about the art. It's all done by Jen St. Onge, who did the art for the DC YA graphic novel Harleen and Harley, which had some absolutely beautiful illustrations in it. The series has a lot of art styles, but this one and Giselle Legacy's are definitely my favorites. Remember everyone, comic book art is important too, and now, back to the plot. Pizzazz reflects on her parents' divorce and how her mother seemed to barely want anything to do with her, which leads to her seeing the entrance to Rocky's live show and remarking that she'll be the one up there someday. Flashback then jumps forward to when Pizzazz met each of the Misfits, starting with Stormer. Turns out Pizzazz was the one to suggest her stage name as well as scout her out at a random bar. This scene is really cute. Then, they go to meeting Roxy, where they found her being underutilized and unable to attack the drums the way she wants to. Later than that, they meet Jetta after hearing her audition tape. They find her punching the lights out of some idiot who is bad-mouthing her. Roxy is instantly infatuated with a woman who can stand up for herself, and yeah, I get it. So Jetta's invited in on the spot. Then about a year after they meet, they find Clash at a coffee shop, whom catches Pizzazz's literary references like they're Kirito and Kaiba. Bud recognizes her and instantly quits her job upon being offered the role of assistant, because Clash catches no wins and loves throwing herself in the way of trouble. This ever-changing flashback then cuts to Blaze, just a few months ago, having offered to quit the Misfits because of their record label pressuring them to go back to their old sound. At which Pizzazz turns to comfort her in a very Pizzazz manner, reassuring her that she's part of the Misfits and the Misfits don't turn their backs on one another. The flashback then ends with Pizzazz spelling out the moral for us by outright saying she lost her family and built herself a new one, then vowing she won't let anything tear them apart. I wish we hadn't have said that out loud, but if we must. She then tells the girls the plans and confirms the deal with Eric. There was a bit of screaming involved, but they handled it. The issue ends with them telling a late-night show host that the Misfits reality TV show is going to tell the viewers everything about them. Well, turns out Stormer hasn't actually signed the contract for the show yet, and she's feeling less than excited, especially because they're all living in the same house. She talks to Pizzazz about her reservations, and particularly about the way the executives and producers of the show want to center a story about her losing weight. There's a lot of very real emotion in this, and some great scenes. Like the one towards the end where the writers discuss the sponsorships they would get about it. There's also a lot of poor writing in this issue, though. Between the somewhat cringy lyrics of Stormer's songs that implies something very different about her bullies, to the presentation of online bullying as quite silly. The realization Stormer's never had a choice in being brave gives her the courage to sign the contract as she realizes showing the world the narrative of her simply living life is the only choice she has. She doesn't get to choose how she exists in this world, but she can choose how she exhibits herself, how she reacts to it, which is a good moral. The issue ends with Stormer resuming the story that was started at the top of it, where she's giving an interview on what changed her mind about doing the show. It's good commentary, just too awkwardly written in a fair few places. I know their hearts were in the right place, and I'm more than happy that the message exists. The third issue is about Blaze, who's been sneaking off to practice with a garage band that she's a part of, and beyond that, a garage band that have no reservation about the camera crew accidentally following Blaze to find them, because it would give them huge publicity. They want to go public and have her leave the Misfits so she can focus on them full time. Blaze spends most of the issue deliberating over this and treating us to flashbacks galore. There's actually a lot of flashbacks in this comic. After meeting a longtime idol of hers, she ends up totally nerding out, especially after her idol recognizes her. She makes up her mind and decides to quit the Misfits, coming back to the Misfits Malibu house to tell Pizzazz. Being ever reasonable, I'm not kidding, Pizzazz tells her it's fine if she has a side project. Smart, even. Thus, Leah Dwyer remains a singer of the Misfits and the lead singer of the Lunas. Everyone wins, even her bandmates, who seem appreciative of the film crew that now accompanies Blaze everywhere. Meanwhile, Roxy is being tormented in a way that is very personal but unintentional. Pizzazz keeps moving all of her things, and Roxy can no longer find them. Pizzazz tells her to just read, because everything's been labeled, and our favorite illiterate rock star storms off to the gym in anger. The cutest child character design I have ever seen in a comic asks for her autograph, and for Roxy to make it out to her, which Roxy has several flashbacks about her inability to learn how to read. Jetta pops in, gets the cameras off her back, and helps her spell out the name, as well as promises to help her learn. We, the audience, learn that Sheila Burns is not her birth name, which is cool. Hell of a name, by the way. Since the cameras have discovered Roxy's illiteracy, Jetta offers to tell them a secret, hers in fact, provided they get off of her back and give Roxy the time and space she needs to grow. The secret Jetta offers up is her own, that she's not British in the slightest, she was born in the US, and the whole thing has been a con to look and seem cooler. Perhaps the most scandalous thing here is that her birth name is Prudence. We get the Jetta backstory after this episode reveals the info to the Misfits. They are confused as to why she didn't tell them, so she tells them now. Jetta's family fell apart after her mother died, and she was sent to live with her aunt, whom was also named Prudence. Jetta's flashback is perhaps the coolest thing I've seen this comic series do. It is stylistically grayscale except for pops of pink, which as far as I can tell represent her mother, freedom, and music. Her aunt was horrid and fought with her all of the time, leading to an abusive relationship between the two, at least emotionally. At 16, she ran away to London and found herself, not only taking on the name of Sheila, but the moniker of Jetta, due to it being her mother's nickname for her, which is adorable. After explaining it to them, the Misfits feel bad for her, and for the situation with the media, which is hounding all of them and calling Jetta a liar and a traitor. Upon being asked why she did it, Roxy pipes up and tells them that it was her own fault, because Jetta was trying to keep them from finding out that Roxy can't read. After some tearful hugs and all-around feel-good stuff about them loving each other, the Misfits get to put out a new music video and let the world know they're back on top of it. Although Lindsay still takes time to stab them about it and all of their recent failings, because when you aren't Jim, Lindsay is your opposition. In fact, during said interview, they drop the bomb on Lindsay that they are creating Misfits music, and that ends the comic run. Full cards on the table, issue 5 is probably my favorite. Stylistically, it's the most interesting. The story is seconded by only the first issue, and it really fleshes out Jetta, and Roxy, just like I asked. Misfits music being back is so exciting as well. With Jim Infinite being able to capitalize on them having their own label, it bodes really well for the next comic, and I'm overjoyed about having one of the unique record labels back. Everyone being signed under 5x5 Records was a boring choice. So full thoughts include, yay, no Kimber, I am so sick of Kimber. Because of Worst Girl not being here, Stormer gets to have her own personality, moments of cattiness, and genuinely sweet moments with the other Misfits and her own storyline. Stormer's a person! I am predisposed to liking the Misfits because they're the most entertaining group in the original. The full anti-hero / lovable villain route is not my preference for them, but even the original show wanted them to be redeemable. Pizzazz's 100+ kill count just made that a little hard. I don't feel any knowledge of the show or character cards is required to enjoy this comic, which is a major complaint I had about the first set of them. Just as well, because you can't have Jim the franchise without fashion, I find it important to mention that while there are a lot of duds in here, there's also a lot of outfits to love, particularly on Pizzazz, Jetta, and Stormer. Jetta's full monochrome aesthetics look better than ever, and every issue or outfit finds a new way to style her hair. My personal favorite is these pigtails from issue 1. Stormer gets done up in an old Hollywood and rockabilly style several times, and it looks so good on her. I thought I really hated her design, but it turns out I only hated the way that she kept getting drawn and the justice-level outfits they kept putting her in. And of course, Pizzazz's punk rock looks always turn heads. Everything I missed about the 80s look was boldness, and they did a much better job at making everyone look bold in this comic. Just as well, Roxy gets drawn with actual muscle. The body diversity goes a lot further with small touches like Roxy's muscular arms and Stormer's adorably round face. Not to mention Blaze's nose. She's so cute. It's genuinely refreshing. I can say this. I recommend it. Issue 2 and 3 are a bit of a low point, but the rest of it makes up for it. If you can put up with these versions of the Misfits, go read it. Do it now. It's really good. My literal only complaint is that there's no Tech Rat. But we have more comics to read, so let's hope I get my wish and we find some Tech Rat. So what I know about this one is that it's A, a crossover with Jim the Misfits, and B, focused on the sci-fi elements of the series. I don't know what that could mean, to be honest. I have a lot less to say about this one going in because, yeah, focusing on the sci-fi could be cool. They could do time travel like they did twice in the original show, and synergy is already the coolest thing ever. Unless you're a movie executive, in which case you're lame and decide synergy's stupid and lame and you need to replace her with an orb. After the last comic, I'm optimistic, so let's get to the wish list. I'll try and be fair since it's only a 6-issue run. I want a coherent plot that ends. I'm looking at you, Dark Gem. The story needs a through line, a moral, and an actual reason for happening. Well, I guess a moral's optional. Aja and Raya need to get character development outside of their boyfriends, or their relation to the other bands. Shauna needs to have at least one outfit to die for. This is being reasonable since she only ever wears bangers. I want the band to be the focus, not their boyfriends. One tech rat appearance. Just one, please, one. Last but certainly not least, it would be very nice if Rio and Jerrica didn't get back together during the first issues. I would be really nice if it takes them at least to issue 3 to get back together. I promise. Now onto the plot. We begin somewhere in LA with Jim and Pizzazz having an unusual screaming match where they constantly say each other's names every few sentences. You know, like normal people. Rio encourages Jim to reveal herself to the world because he feels like he has a say. I'm being mean here. He has a point and is just being overdramatic about it. Rio leaves after admitting he can barely stand to be around Jerrica without wanting to kiss her. Then the holograms debate over revealing the truth and come to the conclusion of Aja is team nope, absolutely not. No one else really comes to a conclusion other than, we're with you, Jerrica. Tech Rat shows up holding the Scepter of Darkness from Sonic 06. Abruptly, he reveals he needs their help, and it's because their father sent him. They all reasonably ask how that could be, and Tech Rat hits them with the greatest line in the book. Your father is like a father to me. Kimber makes the pretty fair assumption of you never met our father, and then tells Tech Rat the admittedly pretty hurtful, even if you knew our father, he still wouldn't like you. But your father is like a father to him, Kimber. We get the explanation that the sci-fi element we're dealing with here is dimensional travel, which I guess that makes sense. I would have thought that would be the one named Jim Dimensions, but that shows how good I am at guessing things. The holograms come to the conclusion that they will go with AU Tech Rat to help their AU... I wrote this in a funnier way than I'm saying it. The holograms come to the conclusion that they will go with AU Tech Rat to help AU their dad. Raya is also very excited about this and wants to meet their dad. However, just as they jump into the portal, the Misfits walk in and see. They follow. I kind of brushed past this in the actual script, but the whole place, like the other world, has this overly saturated and very glitz, glamour, retro-futurism utopia look to it. It's very much what people thought the future would look like in 2016, 2017, and I mean that in a mean way. And in the other Earth, all of them discover Gem and the holograms have become these godlike figures due to a company called Gem Corp taking over the world and building a giant wall to contain the 1%ers. Ooh, commentary. This place seems like a utopia to Jerrica, but I guess she doesn't see that an entire city or more being dedicated to the holograms is scary. Their music is always blasting and everyone is wearing holograms to kinda sorta look like them. And, you know, that's not terrifying or anything. Tech Rat gives everyone a pair of Gemstar earrings to give them hologram disguises, and then they go to his house to discuss. During this sequence of events, the Misfits also discovered that Jerrica is Gem, and unlike Rio, there's a lot more laughing and I don't believe you involved. Then Jerrica sings, and they're like, oh no, I absolutely believe you. They also discover the Misfits of this world, who may not be alive anymore, are probably on the other side of the wall, so the group split to tackle their own thing for like 5 seconds. Back to the holograms, they waste time in the city staring at the utopia just long enough to see Rio, and have Jerrica share a kiss with him, then get pulled away by Tech Rat to go meet Mr. Benton. This is not her Rio, and she just kinda let that kiss happen. Yay. A lot of exposition about the world gets dumped on us. Eric Raymond owns Gem Corp and is an evil capitalist. He also has a mysterious figure hiding behind a hologram wall that he chats to, which I'm betting is AU Jerrica or Pizzazz. Then Mr. Benton drops the bomb that he misses the girls just as much as they miss him. Yes, in fact, he misses his girls so dearly. Because they're dead. Yeah, the real versions of them are dead in this world. That's right, Gem is now fully Hatsune Miku. They have become little more than holograms that are controlled by Eric Raymond with their lives curated around them being as perfect and worshipable as ever. The city reviles them as the perfect celebrities and they don't exist. Then our group plans to use the Gemstar earrings from our world to hack into this world's Synergy for unlimited access to Synergy and her hologram technology. Also, only after the reveal that AU Gem and the holograms have been killed for speaking out does Jerrica finally wisen up to how creepy all of this is. And she's like, oh, it's so scary. It wasn't scary when you saw your face and music being plastered everywhere? Back with the Misfits, on the other side of the wall, things are bleak. Or they're supposed to be. The art kinda doesn't do a very good job at showing this. Buildings are destroyed, most of what's visible outside is desert, and the people live in a situation aesthetically similar to Philly from Fallout the TV show. Also in an aesthetically similar bar to the Prospector's Saloon, they find this world's Kimber and Stormer dressed like they're from Mad Max. Okay, I'll stop with the Fallout jokes. I've met my quota. Stormer has the world's coolest prosthetic arm, and Kimber has ascended to looking nothing like Kimber. The Misfits and AU Stormer and Kimber discuss and discover that the AU Misfits are technically the cause of literally everything. Because, you know, let's blame the Misfits. When Pizzazz found out about Jim's secret, she stole away with one of the earrings and exposed the hologram technology to the world, causing Jim and the Holograms to get even more famous. It also caused the military to raid the Benton house and seize Synergy. Oops! This snowballs into Jim Corp, which they promptly then have the Misfits killed in an explosion after they've been established. Fun, yeah? Mostly because the Misfits remain too strictly anti-Jim. I suppose Eric Raymond is a huge traitor now. Super conveniently, though, Jericho calls the Misfits back to our city because they have a plan. So, the Misfits left, they were out for like less than a day, and then they get called back. We super needed to split up, guys. It was vital. Their plan involves more exposition dumping, but they take over the live hologram show, all the while hacking Synergy to reintroduce the Silica virus and restore her to original programming. How this doesn't cause Silica to just take over the world again, I'm not sure. Eric plans to ruin AU Jim and the Holograms, the literal holograms he controls, I remind you, as per the wishes of the hidden wall person, who it turns out has been Pizzazz the whole time. I called it! At the end of the Gem show, our Jim and the Holograms, as well as are the Misfits, disable the holograms and perform live. At the end, Jerica makes a big display of showing herself and giving a big speech about not living alive with the holograms. She then transforms herself into the most ugly Jim Jerica fusion I have ever seen. Instead of being gorgeous like the dolls or being a beautiful homage to the original art where she's got the blonde hair, it's just... I mean, look at this. Is that not the ugliest outfit you've ever seen Jim in? Seriously, the fashions of Jim Infinite are much worse than the ones of the last comic. I think it's because I don't like retrofuturism, but also... look at her. They wrap up unceremoniously with the 6th part, and about half of our questions don't get answered. As soon as all the higher-ups in Gem Corp see Pizzazz and Jim encouraging people to take off the earrings and break down the wall, they leave. Yeah, they leave. Eric included. They just, poof, gone. They left. So the girls inspired a revolution to a world overconsumed by capitalism and greed, which has destroyed the world beyond the walls of a city. And the villains leave, and we all go home before we have a chance to wrap up anything properly. Yay! Well, okay, that's not the end. The actual ending of this comic line, which I won't call an arc because it easily could have been one continuous comic series, but they kept choosing to break them up like this, is the Misfits agreeing to keep Jim's secret because they would literally die if they don't. Satisfying, yeah? Oh, also, AU, Pizzazz, and Eric have disappeared with literally no explanation. Like, Pizzazz got revealed and then got taken away. I just liked this one a lot more than I thought I would. The comic spends so very long lore dumping on you that it doesn't get any action to happen. I am baffled by the amount of word walls I see in here. To top it off, all the outfits were bad. My pictures I took from this section that weren't plot relevant for fun poses or just because Tech Rat is my absolute favorite boy? Well, I don't have any. Yeah, I don't have any pictures that I just took because I thought the art was cool, or because I liked the outfit. Oh, I do have a lot of pictures of Tech Rat, though. Have I mentioned I love him a lot in this comic? Well, Tech Rat being there obviously makes him the best character. I feel the plot of this one fumbles. It's a lot weaker than Jim the Misfits simply because it doesn't focus on the actual characters. A big problem I'm noticing with this series is them getting really overly enthusiastic about a lofty idea for a story, getting told they have 4, 5, maybe 6 if we're stretching it issues to tell it, and then they try to tell that story as grandiose as possible anyway. I wouldn't recommend Gem Infinite, not only because the plot meanders and the outfits are ugly, but also because I don't like it very much. I'm kidding, mostly. But it's an impersonal story, and earns no favors with me because it doubles the amount of Kimber. She's my least favorite character, and now there's 2 of her. This is as bad as that episode with Princess Adriana. Compared to the last comic, this one's pretty bad. It's fundamentally lackluster in a lot of ways, but it's really bad when you compare it to the one that came just before it. So I suppose it's time to switch to my thoughts about overall Jim the Holograms everything when it comes to this. The solo comics were good, competent, sweet, and personal. Everything I think that Jim and the Holograms, the series, is good at. For some reason, the comics just failed to establish their main characters or their villains. I love the Misfits, and my favorite moments in this were them being catty, brash, or rude. I don't hate these as much as I did the first set. I felt no desire to call all of my friends and tell them how horrendously they butchered my girls, which to be clear they did. Instead, this new ending gives me perhaps more unsatisfaction because I can't put it into words as easy. Every time they find a consistent character, they just get rid of it. Would the Pizzazz, who saw her parents abandon her at 14, still believe her father would check in on her just because she got into a car crash? Would Kimber truly keep blaming Stormer for things her bandmates do after the food fight incident? Would Video Montgomery kidnap someone's cat just because it belonged to Pizzazz? My final conclusion to this long dead horse I'm beating is that they failed due to the characters they presented us with. These people are no more the Misfits or the Holograms than the DC superhero high girls or those characters. It is a story with no stakes, no heroes, and definitely no villains. When we follow the Misfits, we see that they're very normal people who just come from dysfunctional homes. When we follow the Holograms, we learn that they aren't perfect, but they love each other. When we follow the Stingers, we learn that, Riot really wants Gem? The best thing I can say Gem Infinite did was pick a villain, which was Eric. But the Eric we've seen up to this point is a charismatic young businessman who will stick by the Misfits through thick and thin because he believes in them. Even if he was working with AU Pizzazz, she would have never allowed the other Misfits to die. In a way, I think Gem Infinite may be worse than the rest of the comics because of the work that went into fleshing out the Misfits and writing their solo comic, and it gets wasted here. Alright, change of pace. I want to talk about my thoughts on the comic line as a whole and the differences with the show. First off, what did they get right? The differences in body types and the types of people who have their stories told is a great change. I love Buff Roxy, I love Tall Gem. It adds to the characters and it makes them look different, and it adds something unique to each of them. Making Jerrica's shyness and stage fright something that is explicit instead of just implied is a great change. It was something I enjoyed a lot in the show the few times it was touched on, and so I loved seeing it in the comics. I even liked that they got a conclusion to this arc at the end of Gem Infinite. That was satisfying. With the change of the comic being aimed at the YA audience, a lot of the characters are occasionally allowed to curse. I am not an advocate for edgy reboots of things by any means, but the Misfits cursing adds a lot. Let Pizzazz say fuck. There's even a recurring gag where the other Misfits would have to stop Pizzazz from saying something absolutely vile, and I love this. Pizzazz would employ herself some colorful language. Jetta's redesign was absolutely my favorite. Her black and white color scheme being something they committed to and then later explained with her backstory was awesome. Just as well, they found some very interesting ways to style her hair without resorting to the same shaved sides look that they defaulted to for all the other characters. This makes her stand out a lot in a way that I think is really cute. As well, consistently referring to the Holograms as Jerrica's sisters is a good change. Occasionally the show, probably due to network mandates, would take the coward's way out and say that they were just good friends, but they are each other's sisters. Jetta being in the group from the beginning is a neutral change, but apart from the way her and Roxy's stories were tied together while still allowing them to develop from each other, I liked that. It was enjoyable. Due to how much I loved the Misfits solo comic run, I can proudly say Pizzazz and Roxy are my favorite characters, followed by Shauna and Raya. And of course, Shauna and Tony need to win an award or something. Being the only characters to survive both the show and the comic as an unproblematic, loving couple, that is impressive. As for what the comic got wrong, I don't want to list everything. I think I've made most of my thoughts pretty clear between this video and the last. Instead, I just want to reiterate that there are things I like about it. In fact, I'll even admit that if you read the Misfits spin-off comic, you'll discover I was wrong about them feeling underbaked and samey. They get fleshed out well with simply time to just let them be. Even Stormer got past my biggest critiques of her, which is to say that her whole life felt centered around Kimber. I'd go as far to say that the TV executives trying to push a Romeo and Juliet story onto them is a good critique of the flawed way the comic handled their relationship at the beginning. I don't want to come here empty-handed with nothing but doom and gloom news. After all, hope is not lost because the comic licensing for Gem and the Holograms has exchanged hands again. Supposedly next year, Boom Publishing will be releasing a new comic line with new stories. I don't know if it's going to be set in a similar continuity to the original show, or the IDW universe, or something new, but my hope is a full-on reboot. I think a lot of the pitfalls the 2015 to 2017 comic line won't happen again. We know not to boil down queer characters to nothing but their queerness, and fashion has, thankfully, evolved a lot since then. And with our love of 80s nostalgia and aesthetics, I think the 2020s could be very kind to Gem. To be clear, I don't ever expect to see the original characters show up again, but a truly modern reboot would be for the best. As far as a wish list for the next series goes, all I can say is that I want to see them take time to establish the girls, and to not be scared to have the stories be about friendship. It is a heartwarming series, first and foremost, but it also had strong morals. They need to pick a foundation to build off, find their villains and their heroes and stick to them. Have the patience to give us arcs for the characters and don't speedrun them every 2 issues. I want to see less repetition of the original show and more original stories. They don't need world-ending stakes every time, just personal ones. The Misfits comic line is something really good to build off in this way. Overall, yeah, I'm hopeful. Thus ends my thoughts on IDW's Gem and the Holograms. They had some real high moments every once in a while, and I'm proud that attention is on Gem right now. May the 2026 reboot help fulfill her awesome potential. If you made it this far, thank you very much! As a reward, I'll let you know that I'm in the process of a massive redesign project of Equestria Girls. As always, it means a lot to me that you took the time to listen to me rant about one of my favorite series. If there's anything else you want me to cover related to nostalgic and girly media, let me know, and until next time, folks.
Congratulations, you're on your way out. From here on in, I'll be taking a lead.